So, why would I watch a movie instead of reading, say, a Wikipedia entry or just reading a WhatsApp forward? For some context, to find out some conflict, to gain some insight into the subject matter. Now, that's me answering the question for myself. This film does not. Hi, I'm Pratiksha Mishra and you're listening to my review of मैं अटल हूँ. अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी का नाम मैंने स्कूल से लेकर कॉलेज तक काफी बार सुना है, which tracks because he was India's Prime Minister for 6 years. This film is starting out telling the story कि एक ऐसा बच्चा जो स्टेज पे स्कूल पे स्पीच भी नहीं बोल पाता था, वो ऑपोजिशन का इतना बड़ा नेता और फिर फाइनली प्राइम मिनिस्टर कैसे बना. It's an interesting story, but the film barely does it any justice. ये फिल्म doesn't exist in a vacuum, बोल बोल के हम भी थक गए, but it needs to be said because the first half almost feels just like a history lesson, and वो भी ऐसे टाइम पे जहाँ टीचर को सिलेबस खत्म करने की जल्दी है, and the second half just feels like an ad for the ruling party. I mean, come on, the film is shot just almost desaturated the entire time, except you can only see one color, which is just shades of saffron. The cinematography is stunning. I personally really like a kind of desat palette, and also considering that this film is basically like a political hagiography, the scenes, the way they're shot actually fits into the genre really, really well. The background score is really imposing. It almost sounds like it should be in Star Wars. That's the one with the Empire, right? If I'm not wrong. But even this kind of dhadam needs that kind of story to accompany it, which just doesn't happen in this film very much. Watching this film, knowing how the political climate is going to change in the next few years, see, most of it just feels like irony. Vajpayee is literally appreciated for his nidder writing in the journal Rashtradharm, and literally also appreciated for his anti-establishment writing. The irony is just writing itself at this point, because by the time Vajpayee is seen sitting in protest and appreciating the need for an opposition in the parliament, news headlines from the past months are just mocking you. This is literally ये कहाँ आ गए हम यूं ही साथ चलते चलते, like this is it. But even so, the film doesn't do justice to the man as a statesman. जब अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी हमारे PM थे, तब देश में बहुत कुछ हुआ था. Why don't we say, for example, get an insight into his involvement in the Pokhran test? Why don't we see his relationship with his father after a certain point in the film? Especially इस फिल्म में आपको ऐसा कुछ ज़्यादा देखने को या सीखने को मिलेगा ही नहीं, which I didn't already know just by virtue of being awake during history class. RSS में उनका टाइम हमें कुछ glimpses में देखने को मिलता है, and yes, we're told that he respects the people at the helm of it, but why? What are the ideas he was affected by? Did he disagree with any of them? Plus, it's politics. ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता कि उनकी जिंदगी में कोई conflict कहीं ना आया हो. Outside of discussing this with, say, members from his cabinet, how is he dealing with these conflicts? कुछ तो बताओ. One thing is that film में काफी हद तक there's a messaging that, oh, love for your country should come first. So some of the messaging of the film is actually pretty decent. हाँ, ऑपोजिशन एक लोकतंत्र का बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट हिस्सा है. क्वेश्चनिंग द गवर्नमेंट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन शुड नॉट एग्जिस्ट. फ्री प्रेस इज इंपॉर्टेंट. एट वन पॉइंट एक जर्नलिस्ट तो सीधा प्राइम मिनिस्टर से बात कर रहा है. We also get to see how this man became so popular. This film could have been a very good study into how majority opinion is swayed. Sure, petrol prices get mentioned somewhere, किसानों की बात होती है बीच में, but ये फिल्म इतना कुछ करने की कोशिश कर रही है कि all of this also kind of gets lost somewhere. And that's why it's almost shocking when the film enters its advertising era and also kind of starts to deal with India as a monolith. Sure, loving your country is a valid expectation to have, but when you start using phrases like ये हर इंडियन का सपना है या हर भारतीय इनके पीछे खड़ा है, you kind of erode the same values of democracy that the film was earlier talking about. अगर परफॉर्मेंसेस की बात की जाए तो आई सी वाई पंकज त्रिपाठी वॉज कास्ट इन दिस रोल, क्योंकि हिज परफॉर्मेंस इज ब्रिलियंट. जो पंकज त्रिपाठी का कमांड है हिंदी लैंग्वेज के ऊपर, दैट वर्क्स वेरी वेल टू प्ले द स्टेट्समैन एंड पोएट. His speeches in parliament especially, I see why people were swayed by this. And maybe the screenplay is too stuck up in its politics क्योंकि इस character से उतना connect नहीं बन पाता है. And this is a character who on paper should be very easy to connect with. And the far right nationalist politics are pretty much there in your face for you to see. But we're here to watch Vajpayee. और पंकज त्रिपाठी तो किसी भी रोल को बेच सकते हैं. And this is fully अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी. Whether you agree with his politics or not, you can't deny the fact that he was a very prominent political figure. For instance, Operation Vijay at Kargil happened under his leadership as PM. And okay, all the घर में घुस के मारेंगे jingoism aside, I wanted to see the political strategy that went into the win. I do like, however, that the film has kept the spirit of his political views alive. His ideals about peace between neighboring countries or the respect that he had even for his political rivals, it's all there in the film. The way his poems have also been placed in the film or in the storyline is very impressive. I like the fact that the dialogues are written very smartly. शुद्ध हिंदी सबको समझ में नहीं आने वाली है, and it's nice that the dialogue writers have been mindful of that. और अगर कास्टिंग की बात कर रहे हैं, so the casting director has done a pretty good job, especially with Gauri Sukhpankar, who looks uncannily like Sushma Swaraj. Even Raja Rameshwaram Sevak as L.K. Advani. In the last few minutes, the film goes ahead full throttle. Janata Party के dissolution के बाद, what used to be the Jana Sangh became BJP. There's some random imagery of a lotus somewhere, but let that be for a minute. The Ram Janmabhoomi movement in the UP was crucial for the growth of the party, and usme bhi the Babri Masjid demolition is mentioned. It is said that Vajpayee was sad because of how things turned out, and that's all. Expand भाई, और emergency भी ऐसे 5 मिनट में खत्म हो जाते हैं in like archival footage and some voiceover. There is actually so much story to explore, but it all gets so condensed. Despite a decent first half and pretty good performances, the second half of the film just becomes, look at what we have achieved and don't forget what year it is. And that is why my rating for Main Atal Hoon is 2.5 stars out of 5.